Hello friends, welcome back. In the last class, we have seen how do we declare and initialize an array. We have seen that we can create an array in two steps. Let us take this is numbers array, or I can say better say num array 1. I can first create the array variable, then I can say num array 1 is equal to new integer array, and we can mention the size of the array. Then we can combine these two steps into one step also, like num array 2 is equal to new integer of 5, right? This is how we can declare an array, and this is, I can say, just creating an array, creating arrays. If you want to create arrays, create and initialize array, we are having different ways, right? I can create an array called num array 3, which is equal to new integer of 5 memory locations, and I can use a brace. I can say 1 2 3 4 5. Now this is a situation where you have to give exactly 5 elements, right? You cannot give more than that. If you try to give 6, let us take, and we have seen that Unity will give an error message that an array initializer of length 5 was expected. So you have to give 5 elements only. As you have mentioned here, the size is 5. This is a one way. Then you can say num array 4, let us take, is equal to new integer. Here you can see I'm just saying 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. Okay, I have 9 elements, but the difference between this and this is I have not given the size over here. There is no size mentioned. Let us save and come back. We don't have any error. That means you can initialize an array like this also. Here you have more flexibility, right? You can have, if you want, you can have 10, 11, whatever it is. You can add as many as you want if you do not mention the size of an array here. There is not fixed now. There is no problem. What happens in this place means the system will check how many number of elements are there. Those many memory locations it will create, and it will return the address, and that address will be stored over here. This is another way. Or you can say integer array, let us take num array 5 is equal to, you can directly write like this. You can just copy this one, I can copy, right, and I paste here. If I save this, this is also going to work. There is no problem. So these are the 3 different ways you can see to initialize an array in a single line. You are creating and initializing in a single line. So you have 3 different ways. You can save and come back. If you don't have any error message, everything is working properly, you can see. When you have 2 lines, okay, when you are creating an array in 2 lines, let us take, you are having int an array called as num array 6 semicolon. You can initialize it in different ways, as I told. You can say num array 6 is equal to new integer array, and you can mention the size. Let us take 5 elements, and you can use 2 braces to initialize that. Let us take 1 2 3 4 5. This is okay. You cannot put more here because that will give an array index problem, right? Then this is another way. Let us take integer array. Let us take num array 7, then I can say num array 7 is equal to new integer array, and I am not mentioning the size over here, and let me put 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9, close and save, and come back over here. Okay, we don't have any problem, only just we have warnings because we are not using them. That is okay. And you cannot do this operation here. Let me show that in 2 lines. If you are doing int num array 8 and you have num array 8 is equal to, and if you are trying to initialize like this over here, and I just save here num array 8 and I come back, Unity will give an error that unexpected symbol brace. Unity will give this an error message that you have unexpected symbol brace, I don't know. You have to write like this or like this. Now what I always prefer is, as we know that arrays are of fixed size, I just either use this way of syntax or this way of syntax, which will be more flexible for me to write a code, because this type, if I am trying, I should remember that while writing 2-step process, I should not use this one because I get an error. Okay, it is good to know, okay, what problems we get, how do we create an array, and how do we initialize them, okay, what actually happens behind the scene. Okay, please note these things and remember what errors you get, how do you declare and initialize. Okay, let's move on to the next step. Now I have, while explaining previous classes, I have copied some code into a notepad. I hope you remember, right? I told I will come back to that. Let me come back to that code. I have a code over here. I just cut from here, don't save, and I just paste it. You can see, actually in the previous class we have created an array called numbers and we initialize them with values, right? We created another array, we initialize that with few values, and we displayed also. Let me Control X and come back and put over here, right? So here we have the code that you can see and understand what is that. So we have a code, int numbers is equal to new int of 5, which is going to allocate 5 different memory locations, right, and stores the beginning address in the numbers. And we have seen that instead of doing like this, instead of assigning one by one, we can use the assignment way, right? We can write here 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. I need not write these lines, correct or not? So this will automatically initialize 5 memory locations with the values 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Okay, that is good. The same thing I can do over here also. Here I can say 60, 70, 80, 90 and 100 and closing brace. I can remove these things. We have solved one problem of initializing again and again by using the index in one line, right? That is a very good step. We have reduced number of lines of code here, correct or not? If I save this, it will work perfectly. There is no problem. If I run the code, I will get the result as 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. Correct or not? Now let us take, I want to display, let us take, I don't want to call these things again and again. I want to display these elements. I want to reduce this number of lines because we are doing the debug.log repeatedly, right? Loop, right? Here I can use the loops, take a help of loops and display the values of them. If you are displaying the values of an array one by one like this, or you are processing an array one by one from top to down or bottom to top, is called as traversing an array or processing an array. Very useful concept. Okay, the different operations that you can perform on array elements. The first operation is traversing. Traversing means displaying the elements one by one, all the elements. Now how do I display the elements of an array? Means instead of writing like this again and again, one thing you need to notice, this value is changing. It is becoming first 0, then 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. So why can't I use a for loop, right? I can use a for loop which is going to start with I is equal to 0, I is less than max. Max is total number of elements in an array, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is, I say here 5. That is max. Then instead of calling these many number of times, I can just write once debug.log. Instead of displaying here, I just say I. Okay, let me delete this. This one will come back. I just delete this so that for simplicity, I'll remove this one. We just see this much code. We'll understand this much code. So what happens when the code get executes? Right. Very simple. First I will be 0. Whether 0 is less than 5, the condition is true. When we say debug.log, number of 0 will be executed. So numbers of 0 is what? This one. The 10 will get displayed. Then I plus plus 1. 1 is less than 5, condition is true. It will execute this line. Numbers of 1 will be displayed. Numbers of 1 is 20. 20 will get displayed. Then I plus plus. I is going to become 2. 2 is less than 5 is true. It will display numbers of 2. Numbers of 2 is 30. Right. Then I plus plus. It's going to become 3. 3 is less than 5 is true. Numbers of 3. Numbers of 3 is what? 40. Correct or not? Then I plus plus. It's going to become 4. 4 is less than 5 is true. Numbers of 4 is what? 50. Right? Numbers of 4th index is 50. So 50 will get displayed. Then I plus plus. I is going to become what? 5. 5 is less than 5 is false. That's it. That is how it works. Let me show that. Okay, let us save and put a breakpoint and run the code. Okay, now we have numbers and step over. Now the numbers you can see, you have numbers of 0 is 10, numbers of 1 is 20, numbers of 2 is 30, numbers of 3 is 40, numbers of 4 is 50. Now first I will be 0, you can see I is less than 5 is true, so it will go inside. Now we are going to display numbers of 0. What is numbers of 0? You can see that numbers of 0 is 10. It will display 10 on the screen. Step over. Next I plus plus. I is going to get increment. I is going to become 1. 1 is less than 5 is true, so it will come inside. This time I value is 1. And what is numbers of 1? The numbers of 1 is 20. It will display 20 on the screen. Step over. Then I is going to get increment, right? And I is going to be 2. 2 is less than 5 is true. So it will go inside. Numbers of 2 is going to get executed. And what is numbers of 2? Numbers of 2 is 30. 30 will get displayed. Right. Then I plus plus. This is going to become 3. What is numbers of 3? Numbers of 3 is 40. So we get 40. Next I has incremented. That is 4. What is numbers of 4? Numbers of 4 is 50. So 50 will get displayed. This time I is going to get increment to 5. 5 is less than 5 is false. It will come out. Right? It will come out of the for loop. And all the values we have displayed. This is how you are going to traverse an array and display their values by using the for loop. Very simple. Nice, right? Now, as I told in the previous class, okay, same step you can do with the another array also, right? You need to create one more for loop, and you just need to access numbers of 2 array. That's it, right? Now I say Control Z. Let us take. I come back to the code which we had. Here I will write for I is equal to 0. You can see here, instead of writing 5, I can use arrays one property, that is numbers dot array has one of the important property called as length. What is that? Gets a 32-bit integer that represents the total number of elements in all the dimensions of the array. It will just show that total number of elements. It will return us back. If I hit enter, here it will automatically replace with 5 when I run the code. This will become 5. Why? Because the total number of elements is 5. Right? The length property is useful to get the total number of elements in the array. You remember this one. I am putting a dot and accessing that. It is a property. Now I can say here debug.log. I can say numbers of I. And this will display all the values 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Now how do I do the same thing over here? What I can say, for I is equal to 0, I is less than numbers 2 dot length I am using. Okay, numbers 2 dot length, which will give me the total number of elements in the numbers 2 array. And I can say here debug.log. I can say numbers 2 of I. Now here also the same process. This time we are looping through the numbers 2 array. I will be 0. It will display 0th element of numbers 2, which is 60. Then I will be incremented to 1. Then 1 is less than 5 is true. Then it will display the second element, that is 70, like that. Now let us save and check whether we get all the values. If I run the code, you should see all the values because we have looped through them. We have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. Simple step, right? I hope you understood how do you create an array, initialize that, loop through the array, what is the length property, how do you use that, and display the result. If you want to see, I just show you. I put a breakpoint so that you will get an idea what is numbers.length is doing. Okay, if you put a, here you can see numbers of length is how much? 5. That is the total number of elements in the numbers array. Then of course step over. Okay, that is how you loop through. If you want to loop through in the reverse order, then you have to write a reverse for loop. Correct or not? Now let me show that. For R, that is a reverse for loop I can create. Here the max is going to be numbers dot length minus 1. I is greater than or equal to 0. I minus minus. Then here I can say debug.log. I can say numbers of I. This is going to be a reverse for loop. Now same thing I can do over here also for R, and here I say numbers 2, right? Numbers 2 I use. Numbers 2 dot length I have to write. Then I say debug.log. I can say numbers 2 of I. Now how do these loops work? We already know how do these two loops work. Now what happens here means, first I will be assigned to length is 5. 5 minus 1 is 4. So I is going to be 4. First it will display numbers of 4, which is 50. Correct or not? Because Anyhow 4 is greater than or equal to 0 is true. After displaying 50, it will go to I minus minus. I is going to become 3. 3 is greater than or equal to 0 is true? Yes. So it will display numbers of 3, which is 40. Then I minus minus. I is going to become 2. 2 is greater than or equal to 0 is true. So it will display numbers of 2, which is 30. Then I minus minus, it is going to become 1. 1 is greater than or equal to 0 is true. It will display numbers of 1, that is 20. Then what happens? Then I minus minus, I is going to become 0. 0 is greater than or equal to 0? Yes, that is true. So it will display numbers of 0, that is 10. Then after that I minus minus, it is going to become minus 1. Minus 1 is greater than or equal to 0? That is false. It will come out. So we get output as 50 first, then 40, then 30, then 20, then 10. After displaying this, here we are doing the reverse for loop again, right? Now this time here what output we get? We get 100, then 90, then 80, then 70, then 60, then 50. Correct or not? Okay. So we should get the output as 50, 40, 30, 20, 10, 100, 90, 80, 70, 60, 50. Let us save and come back and let's see the code. Okay. If I run the code, we should get the reverse of both the arrays. We got 50, 40, 30, 20, 10, 100, 90, 80, 70, 60. Nice, right? So that is about the single for loop. As I told, it will be used with one-dimensional arrays usually and used to traverse through an array and display the values in the forward or reverse way. I hope you remember when we were learning looping statements, I also used to say that I will explain you guys about the for each loop. Usually for each loop is used with the list or a collection, right? I hope you remember that. Now how do I loop through using for each? Let me explain about for each now. For each is a statement which you can see the syntax. It is a type. First you have to write a data type and create one identifier. Identifier means a variable name. Then you should write in keyword. Then you have to write the expression over here. Then after that any statement that you want to execute. A for each statement repeats a group of embedded statements for each element in an array or an object collection. At present we are working with the array, so let's see the array. You can use for each and you can see here it is asking to which collection you want to loop through. Okay, let me explain this one. What you need to do is, once again I will write for each, you have to write, put a bracket, then create a variable first, integer. Let us take, I create element. This is a variable. How do we declare a variable? Data type, variable name. Then you have to use a keyword called as in. After that you have to write which array you want to loop or which collection you want to loop. I want to loop through this numbers array. So I have written numbers array, bracket close, opening brace, closing brace. Then you should say debug.log. You have to write item. That is your element variable, this variable name. Now let us understand how it works and let me comment this part so that we need not to worry about what is this. Okay, this is commented now. We have only this much code in our start function. Save. Now we need to understand this clearly. What for each loop does is it takes the numbers array. It will check whether there is an element in the array. Yes, there is an element, that is 10. It will take that first element, puts inside this variable called as element variable, and it will display that 10 on the screen. Okay, that element value whatever is stored now. Then again it will check whether there is a next element in the array. Yes, there is a next element 20. It will take the 20, put inside this display that 20. Then again it will go back and check whether there is a next element. Yes, there is 30. It will put 30 inside this and displays that. Then again it will go back and check whether there is a next element in the numbers array. Yes, there is 40. It will put that 40 inside and display that. Again it will go back. Is there any next element? Yes, there is 50. Put that in the element array, element variable, and display that. Again go back. Whether there is a next element in this one? No. So the loop will come out. This is how the for each loop works. Let us save and just show you whether we get 10, 20, 30, 40 and 50 or not. You can see that we got the values 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. That means using the for each loop, how it is easy. Here you need not to worry about initializing, then you need not to worry about checking the condition, you need not to worry about incrementing or incrementing thing, right? A very simple thing. You have to write a for each keyword, then create one variable, write in keyword, then which array you want to loop through, and write what you want to do with that element. Now same thing you can do for this one also, right? How do I write for that? I write for each, then the variable is going to be an integer type. Now this one you can write any variable name here. Here I have written element. Let us take here we say item. Then here we would like to loop through numbers2 array, and we display that one. Debug.log. What we want to display? Item. Right, because item is going to hold the values one by one. If I save, come back and run the code, you should see all the values now. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. Nice, right? How for each loop is useful now. One of the things you need to know is you cannot use for each to display the value in the reverse order. You cannot have a reverse for loop. For each is only forward loop. It will just loop from top to down, not bottom to top. Okay, that is one small disadvantage, or not disadvantage, limitation of for each, you can say. So this is the way how you will loop through an array using for loop and for each loop. Okay, what is the syntax of for each and how do you execute them? Okay, in the further classes we will be getting more information about the loops. Okay, I hope you understood how the for loop works and for each loops works, and we have understood one important property. There is a property called as length, which is used to get the total number of elements in the array. Okay, for this class I think this much is enough, guys. I hope you understood. Practice and understand, analyze, please. Keep coding, keep learning. Thank you guys, thank you very much. See you in the next tutorial.